His name was Marcus. He had worked for 38 years as a plant supervisor at a manufacturing facility outside Columbus, Ohio. He had a bad knee, a pension that covered the basics, and a 401k with just over $220,000 in it. And on the morning of his 62nd birthday, he did something most of his coworkers had also done. He opened the Social Security Administration website, found the application form, and clicked Submit. His monthly benefit was approved at $1,840. Marcus felt relief. He felt like he had finally crossed a finish line he had been running toward for nearly 4 decades. What Marcus did not know, what nobody had ever clearly explained to him, was that he had just accepted a permanent 30% reduction in his income for the rest of his life. And that if he had waited just 8 more years, that same check would have been $3,160 every single month. For life. Guaranteed. Inflation adjusted. The difference over the course of a 20-year retirement? More than $300,000. Marcus is not a cautionary tale about irresponsibility. He is not a story about someone who failed to plan. He is the story of the average American retiree. And the decision he made on that Tuesday morning is the decision that most people approaching retirement will make, without fully understanding what it costs them. Today, we are going to look at that decision in a way that most financial content never does. Not with scare tactics, not with complicated formulas, but with honesty, with real examples, and with the clarity that every person approaching retirement deserves. This is the 62 versus 70 delusion. And understanding it may be the most valuable 30 minutes you spend before you retire. First of all, let's talk about what Social Security actually is, and the decision most people miss. Social Security is one of the most widely used and least deeply understood financial programs in the developed world. Most people know the basics. You pay into it through payroll taxes during your working years. When you retire, it sends you a monthly check. You can start collecting at age 62. That is roughly where most people's understanding ends. And that gap in understanding is exactly where the problem begins. Because Social Security is not a fixed payment sitting in a vault with your name on it. It is a benefit whose final monthly value is determined almost entirely by one variable: the age at which you choose to begin claiming it. The claiming window, from 62 to 70. Here is how the system actually works. The Social Security Administration defines something called full retirement age, or FRA. For most people born after 1960, that age is 67. At 67, you receive 100% of the benefit you earned through your work history. But you are allowed to claim as early as 62. And you can delay claiming as late as 70. Claim at 62 and your benefit is permanently reduced by approximately 30% below your full retirement age amount. Wait until 70 and your benefit is permanently increased by approximately 24% above your full retirement age amount. Add those together and the difference between claiming at 62 and claiming at 70 can be as large as 76% of your monthly income. Every single month. For the rest of your life. That is not a footnote. That is the most important number in retirement income planning. Think back to Marcus. His colleague Patricia worked at the same facility for 36 years. Same general salary range, same basic financial profile. But Patricia had a financial advisor who sat her down at 60 and walked her through the numbers. Patricia retired from the plant at 63. But she did not claim Social Security. She lived on her 401k savings and a small part-time consulting income for 7 years. At 70, she filed her Social Security claim. Her monthly benefit, $3,080. Marcus, who claimed at 62, received $1,840 per month. By the time both of them turned 85, Patricia had collected over $190,000 more in Social Security income than Marcus. Same plant. Same career length, same town. One decision, made 8 years apart, produced 2 entirely different retirements. So, what are the 3 beliefs that lead people to claim too early? When you ask early claimers why they claimed at 62, 3 answers come up again and again. And each one of them contains a genuine truth wrapped around a financial misunderstanding. Belief 1. I am just taking back what I put in. The most common justification for claiming early is the sense of ownership. People feel that Social Security money is their money, that they paid it in over 40 years of work, and that claiming it as soon as possible is simply getting what they are owed. This feeling is entirely human. And the contribution part is true. But Social Security is not a personal savings account. Your payroll taxes did not sit in an account with your name on it. Social Security is a pooled insurance system. Your benefit is calculated based on your earnings history and your claiming age, not on the specific dollars you contributed. Claiming early does not give you access to your money sooner. It gives you a permanently smaller income for the rest of your life. Those are not the same thing. Let's talk about Gerald's calculation that felt right but was not. Gerald was a high school principal in Tennessee who retired at 62. He had sat down with a notepad and calculated that he had contributed roughly $140,000 to Social Security over his career. He reasoned that if he claimed at 62 and received about $1,900 a month, he would, quote, get his money back in just over 6 years. After that, he figured, everything was gravy. What Gerald did not factor in was what would happen after 77, when his cumulative collections would have matched what he would have received by waiting until 67. Gerald lived to 89. In the final 12 years of his life, he received approximately $68,000 less in Social Security income than he would have received by waiting just 5 more years to claim. He never thought of it that way. He only ever thought about getting his money back. Belief 2. Social Security is going to run out. The second belief driving early claiming is fear. Specifically, fear that the Social Security system itself is financially unstable and that waiting risks collecting nothing at all. This fear is not invented. The financial media has been publishing alarming headlines about Social Security's future for decades. Trust fund depletion dates get circulated widely. Politicians debate the program's sustainability. And the cumulative message absorbed by ordinary people is that the system is fragile. Here is what the evidence actually shows. Social Security does face long-term funding pressure, primarily because people are living longer than the program's original actuarial models anticipated. If no legislative changes are made, projections suggest the trust funds could face shortfalls in the mid-2030s. But even in that scenario, the program would still be able to pay approximately 75 to 80% of scheduled benefits, funded by ongoing payroll taxes from current workers. And Congress has intervened in Social Security's finances multiple times across its history precisely because the political cost of failing to do so is too high. Claiming Social Security early because you fear the program will vanish is, for most people, allowing a media-amplified anxiety to override a mathematically sound decision. Belief 3. The break-even analysis makes waiting too risky. The break-even argument is the most financially sophisticated of the three. It says, if you claim at 62, you get smaller checks but more of them. If you claim at 70, you get larger checks but fewer. At some point in your mid-70s, the larger checks catch up and surpass the smaller ones. That is the break-even point. The argument then goes, since you might die before the break-even, claiming early is the safer bet. This framing is mathematically correct but strategically incomplete. It treats Social Security as a race to collect the most money before you die, rather than what it actually is, insurance against the financial consequences of living a long time. More than half of 65-year-olds alive today will live to 85 or beyond. And the later years of life tend to be the most expensive, in terms of health care and living support. Those are precisely the years when a larger, inflation-protected monthly income matters most. Waiting is not a gamble on your longevity. It is protection against the financial cost of outliving your savings. Now, what are the real reasons early claiming feels like the only option? Even people who understand, intellectually, that waiting produces a better financial outcome still claim early in enormous numbers. The reason is not ignorance. It is circumstance. And the most common circumstance is this: they have no bridge. The bridge problem. The bridge is the income or savings needed to cover your living expenses between the day you stop working and the day you begin claiming Social Security. If you retire at 62 with insufficient savings to last 7 or 8 years without Social Security, waiting until 70 is not a strategy. It is an impossibility. This is one of the most consequential and least discussed failures in American retirement preparation. People save for retirement, but they rarely save in a way that gives them the flexibility to sequence their income sources strategically. A person who arrives at 62 with $150,000 in savings, a mortgage still running, and no pension has no bridge. Their only options are to continue working, to claim Social Security immediately, or to dramatically reduce their standard of living. None of those options involve a calm, strategic decision about claiming age. They involve survival. Meet Diane and Robert, a marriage, two different realities. Diane and Robert had been married for 31 years when Robert turned 62. Robert was a truck driver. His body was tired. His lower back had been through 2 surgeries. He wanted out. They had $210,000 in a joint 401k, a house worth $340,000 with $180,000 still owed on it, and no pension. Robert claimed Social Security at 62. His monthly benefit was $2,090. What neither of them fully considered was that Robert was the higher earner, and that if Robert died first, Diane's survivor benefit would be based on that $2,090 check, not on what it could have been. Robert passed away at 79. Diane, then 76, received his survivor benefit as her primary income, $2,090 a month, in $2,024, after inflation adjustments. She had expected more. She had assumed the system would provide more. Nobody had ever shown her a piece of paper that said, "The check your husband claimed at 62 is the check you will live on for the rest of your life if he goes first." Diane was not poor, but she was careful, more careful than she had hoped to be. She is 83 now. She still thinks about that Tuesday morning decision Robert made 17 years ago. Robert's story is not about fault. He made the best decision he knew how to make with the information he had. But his story is about the compounding consequences of a single claiming decision, consequences that extended not just across his own retirement, but across his wife's financial life for decades after his death. If the mathematics of delayed Social Security claiming are this clear, the obvious question is, why does nobody explain this to people before they make the decision? The answer is uncomfortable, but it is worth understanding. The government has no financial incentive to tell you to wait. The Social Security Administration's benefit structure was designed to be actuarially neutral. In theory, the average person who claims at 62 and the average person who claims at 70 should collect roughly the same total lifetime benefit, assuming they live to statistical life expectancy. Here is the problem with that assumption. Life expectancy has increased dramatically since those actuarial tables were last fundamentally restructured. People are living longer, which means that delayed claiming is no longer just mathematically neutral, it is increasingly advantageous for the individual. But the government has not updated its guidance to reflect this shift. It processes your claim at whatever age you choose, presents both options with equal neutrality, and leaves the analysis to you. If you claim early, the government pays a smaller check for more years. If you claim late, it pays a larger check for fewer years. On balance, early claiming is not financially costly to the program, which means the program has no particular incentive to push you toward waiting. The financial media profits from your fear. The second reason is more straightforward. Financial journalism is driven by engagement. And the content that generates the most engagement around retirement is content that generates anxiety. Headlines about Social Security running dry, about benefit cuts, about uncertain futures, these perform well. They tap into something primal, a calm, measured explanation of why most healthy retirees with any flexibility should wait until 70 to claim Social Security does not generate the same engagement. It is useful, it is important, but it is not alarming. And in a media ecosystem driven by attention, alarm is currency. Now, let's discuss about the strategy behind waiting, and how real people execute it. Understanding the problem is half the work. Understanding how people actually solve it is the other half. Because delayed claiming is not simply a decision. It is a plan, and it requires thinking about retirement income in a fundamentally different way than most people are taught to. Think of Social Security as your income foundation, not your first check. Financially prepared retirees think about their income in layers. The foundation layer is guaranteed, inflation-adjusted income that cannot be outlived and requires no investment management. Social Security at its maximum value is the most powerful tool available to ordinary retirees for building that foundation. The variable layer sits on top: the 401k, the IRA, the brokerage account. These are subject to market swings, interest rate changes, and sequence of returns risk. They are not guarantees. The strategic insight that changes everything is this: you build the foundation first, and you use the variable assets as the bridge to get there. Spending down your 401k between 62 and 70 to delay Social Security claiming is not depleting your retirement fund. It is exchanging a volatile asset for a guaranteed one. And for most people who run the numbers honestly, that exchange is favorable. For married couples, the claiming decision carries an additional layer that is almost universally underappreciated. When a spouse dies, the surviving partner receives either their own Social Security benefit or the deceased spouse's benefit, whichever is larger. This means that the higher-earning spouse's claiming decision is not just about their own income. It is a decision about what the surviving spouse will live on potentially for decades. If the higher earner claims at 62 and locks in a 30% reduction, that reduced number becomes the survivor's income floor for the rest of their life. If the higher earner waits until 70, the survivor inherits the maximum possible monthly income. This is the single most overlooked dimension of Social Security planning. And it is one of the most important. Why our brains fight against the right decision. Here is the part of this conversation that most financial content skips entirely. The mathematics of delaying Social Security are not complicated. And yet the majority of people still claim early. The reason is not information failure alone. It is psychology. We overvalue what is available right now. Behavioral economists call it hyperbolic discounting. Human beings are wired to place significantly more value on rewards available in the present than on larger rewards available in the future. In an environment shaped by evolutionary pressures, this made sense. A meal today was more valuable than a promised feast next month, because next month was not guaranteed. But in the context of a retirement that may last 30 years, this bias works directly against your financial well-being. The Social Security check at 62 feels real, visible, and certain. The larger check at 70 feels abstract, distant, and somehow less guaranteed, even when the math says otherwise. We fear the loss more than we value the gain. The early claiming fear, that you might die before collecting a meaningful amount, is rooted in what psychologists call loss aversion. Research established by Daniel Kahneman showed that losses feel approximately twice as painful as equivalent gains feel pleasurable. The possibility of dying before 70 and collecting nothing activates this loss aversion powerfully. Even though the statistical probability of dying between 62 and 70 is relatively low for a healthy person, the vividness of that possibility outweighs the more abstract, statistical likelihood of living to 85 and beyond. Now, let's discuss about what you can actually do. A simple decision framework. Everything covered so far is context. And context is only valuable if it leads to something you can do. Here is a simple, practical framework for approaching the Social Security claiming decision with clarity. Step 1. Look up your actual numbers. The Social Security Administration's website allows you to see your projected benefit at 62, at your full retirement age, and at 70, based on your actual earnings history. Most people have never done this. They have a vague sense of what they will receive, but they have never seen the specific dollar difference between claiming at 62 and claiming at 70. Start there. The numbers make everything real. Step 2. Calculate what a bridge would actually cost. Once you know the benefit difference, calculate what it would cost in savings to bridge the gap between your intended retirement date and age 70. Multiply your estimated annual living expenses by the number of years in the gap. That is your bridge requirement. Compare it honestly against your savings. If the bridge is feasible, if you have or can build the assets to cover the gap, delayed claiming deserves serious consideration. Step 3. Run the survivor scenario. If you are married, model what happens to the surviving spouse's income under both scenarios. What does your spouse receive each month if you claim at 62 and then die at 75? What do they receive if you claim at 70 and die at 75? Put those numbers on paper side by side. The difference, for the surviving spouse, is often the single most persuasive piece of information in the entire analysis. Step 4. Separate the retirement decision from the claiming decision. You do not have to claim Social Security the day you stop working. These are two separate decisions. You can retire from full-time employment at 62 or 63 and still delay your Social Security claim for several years. Recognizing this separation gives you far more strategic flexibility than most people realize they have. Step 5. Talk to a fiduciary. The Social Security claiming decision is permanent, and its financial impact, compounded over a 20 or 30-year retirement, can be larger than almost any other single financial decision you make. A fee-only fiduciary financial advisor, who is legally required to act in your interest and who earns no commissions on products, can model your specific scenarios and help you make this decision from analysis rather than anxiety. The cost of that conversation is almost certainly less than the cost of a poorly informed claiming decision. So, let's talk about the simplest truth about the 62 versus 70 decision. Back to Marcus. Remember Marcus, from the beginning of this video. The plant supervisor in Ohio who claimed at 62 and received $1,840 a month. Marcus is now 73. He is healthy. His knee is better after a second surgery. He plays golf twice a week and watches his grandchildren on Fridays. He does not live in poverty. But he is careful. Every month when his Social Security deposit arrives, he knows it is not what it could have been. He has done the math. He knows the number. He told his son last year, "I did not make a bad decision. I made an uninformed one." And in finance, those are sometimes the same thing. He is making sure his son knows the difference before he has to make the same choice. Social Security is not complicated when you understand it. The claiming decision does not require a financial degree. It does not require wealth. It requires one thing: enough information to see past the cultural default and make a genuine choice rather than an automatic one. Most people who claim at 62 do not do so because they ran the numbers and decided early was better. They do it because it feels normal, because everybody around them is doing it, and because nobody sat down with them and clearly showed them what the alternative was worth. You now have that clarity. What you do with it is your decision, but it should be a decision, not a default. If you have stayed through this entire video, you now understand something that the majority of people approaching retirement have never been clearly shown. Social Security is not a paperwork decision. It is a permanent income architecture decision. And the age at which you make it can shape the financial quality of the last 30 years of your life. But here is what is worth sitting with after this video ends. The Social Security decision does not exist in isolation. It sits inside a larger retirement income picture. And one of the most consequential, least discussed parts of that picture is this. Most people arrive at retirement with the right assets, but in the wrong sequence. They have money, but they draw it down from the wrong accounts, at the wrong times, and they pay for that sequencing error in unnecessary taxes, in reduced flexibility, and in a retirement that feels financially tighter than the numbers on paper suggested it would be. In our next video, we are going to look at exactly that. Which retirement accounts to draw from first? Which to preserve? How the order in which you spend your assets affects your tax burden, your Social Security benefit calculation, your Medicare premiums, and the total wealth you are able to leave behind. It is a topic most financial content does not go deep enough on. And if today's conversation was useful to you, the next one is going to be just as important. Make sure you do not miss it. Thank you for watching.